Hi, welcome to the NASCAR and NBC podcast. I'm your host, Nate Ryan, joined today by the mayor, Jeff Burton, rather fortuitously, because we're talking 2 days after his son Harrison, actually 3 days after his son Harrison won his first Cup Series race at Daytona International Speedway. This was planned, by the way, weeks ago by our producer, Emily Conboy, who obviously has a sixth sense for knowing when to have the right guest on. Jeff, thanks for being here. Let's just start with the obvious. I mean, what have the last few days been like as you've gotten to kind of soak in the celebration?
Yeah, Nate, obviously, I mean, it was, that evening was pretty crazy and a fun celebration with the Wood brothers and Harrison and, everybody that was there. And then, since then, I mean, I don't want to exaggerate. I want to say thousands, but at least the high hundreds of emails, texts, phone calls. Sunday evening, I sat down and tried to respond to all of them, and it was 3.5 hours of just responding. Wow. And honestly, Nate, that's been extremely special to me because people reaching out to show that love and show that respect. And I've never, in all the races I've won, never got that type of response. And I don't know if that's modern technology. I don't know what that is, but it's been heartwarming. It's been it's really been special to get all of these texts and phone calls, emails. That's been really special to me.
Who's I don't know how much you can get into it, but has there been one that surprised you? Just generally, like, who have you heard from? Is it former drivers? Is it team owners? Is it industry people? Like, give us a sense of what that outpouring of support's been like.
Yeah, I mean, it's been from all of that. I mean, current drivers, a lot of the current drivers, a lot of current crew chiefs, crew members, a lot of industry, people within NASCAR, people, team owners, current and former sponsors, friends, family, and then some people that I don't really know that are people in the industry that I don't really have a strong relationship with. It's a gamut. Political figures. I mean, just it's crazy. I mean, it's been off the charts, and it's been fun. I mean, it's really been fun. Some golfing buddies, some just all kinds of people, and it's when my phone rings or whatever, I'm very curious. Well, who's this? Because it's been such a diverse group.
Well, and you just told us like you're not one to kind of celebrate for a long time. You're not one to dwell on partying and things like that. Not to disparage your ability to have a good time, but you're not somebody who sits there and turns it into like a 3-day celebration. So when you're responding to those messages on Sunday night, like what's that like? I mean, I know you're always thinking about the next thing. You're all business. You're moving on, but like, how do you respond? Like, how do you kind of like live in that moment, but also just still kind of be yourself? Like, what do you tell people you've never heard from who are telling you congratulations on your son's victory?
Yeah. So right after when Lee Diffie dismissed me from the booth, Clay Campbell, with Martinsville Speedway and all the things he does in NASCAR, I turn around and there he is in the booth, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm going to get you down." And he and Chip Wild, they parted the seas for me to get down there. I mean, it was crazy. Like when I got down the elevator, like I walked straight onto the racetrack, and Harrison was still celebrating on the front straightaway. And on that trip, I showed Clay my phone was just it was ringing so often that it was like a constant vibration. Just it never stopped. And I showed Clay, I'm looking at this, and as long as I could scroll in those 4 or 5 minutes, I mean, I scrolled forever, and I didn't even try to respond at that moment. You know what I mean? There were a few people that, Harrison's sister. I FaceTimed her, Dan Doyle with Dex, who's been just hugely a dear friend, but also just instrumental in Harrison's career. His family, they're just great people. Just first class people. FaceTimed him from Victory Lane. Just those needed immediate and wanted I wanted them to have immediate responses, and but the rest of them I tried to delay because I just wanted to. I did a better job, Nate, of this one of soaking up the moment and just enjoying the experience and not worrying about what was next. And to the point where I woke up Sunday morning and didn't know how I was going to get home. So, and you know me, that's not me. So I woke up Sunday. I'm like, how the hell am I going to get home? So, yeah, but yeah, I tried. And then, like I said, I tried Sunday to get all those responses, but, yeah, it was a wild exchange on my phone.
Yeah, that's not the normally buttoned up Jeff Burton that I know. So you woke up and your ride was gone, and you had no car and no plane ticket Sunday morning, basically.
I knew I had. I fly with one of the charters that goes in and out of takes all the teams, and I in Victory Lane, Ricky Stenhouse came to congratulate Harrison, and I said, "Hey man, tell just you guys to go." You know what I mean? Because I didn't want to hold them up. Because I sat on the tarmac after they won the Daytona 500 for probably 5 hours waiting for them to get back. And look, I didn't want to wait, but at the same time, I was happy that I got to wait. Right, that whole team won the Daytona 500. They got to celebrate, but Kim and I didn't want to hold up for two of us. We didn't want to hold up the airplane, so we said go, and we'll figure it out. And then I didn't figure it out until Sunday, and that was a blast in the rental car up 95. That seemed to be the best. The best.
What better way to celebrate your son's first Cup victory than a 7-hour ride home the next day on vacation clogged 95 traffic? I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah, that was fun. I bet. So you mentioned getting dismissed by Diff from the booth. Obviously, we can't ignore it, especially as NASCAR and NBC employees. That was a big part of this story. And made this such a wonderful moment. A few things on this. First, I want to ask you, because it was really cool that we were able to have you speak to Harrison pretty much on his cool down lap while he was celebrating the victory. And Harrison greeted you. You're on the radio. You're saying, "Hey, Harrison, it's Dad," and Harrison greets you with a "yo" on his team radio. So I was wondering when I heard that, like, how similar is that to the greeting that you get from Harrison in everyday life when he picks up the phone?
That's when I need to talk to him or he needs to talk to me, that's our message to each other on text, yo. And then it goes from there. Either someone responds or they don't, depending on what they're doing. But so yeah, I mean, we have a very casual and good relationship. And so I found out later he didn't know we were on air. Like he was just talking to me, and he didn't recognize, like he didn't connect the dots. Hey, this is on air, which is a good reminder. Maybe next time I should say, hey, we're on air. But or to any driver. But anyway, yeah, it was just that was what you saw there and heard there. That's how we talked to each other. And because I knew I was on air, but he didn't. If I wasn't on air, I may have greeted him a little differently, but yeah, I did have to recognize that I was.
Yeah, it did feel like we were just eavesdropping on father and son and normal everyday conversation. And is that kind of the relationship that you and Harrison have? It's not just father-son. It sounds like you're buds.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Harrison's I shouldn't say obviously, but it's obvious to me. But Harrison's always, from the time he was 2 years old, shown me a tremendous amount of respect as his father. And I've always appreciated that. He's always allowed me to interject my opinion without him. He may disagree, but it's never contentious. And I've always tried to do the same for him. And so we have a very open, candid relationship, and it's built on honesty. It's built on directness. We have different personalities, which is great. And he's allowed me, and I allow him to be ourselves. But we have I'm really fortunate. Both my children, I have great relationships with, and we speak very frankly and very honestly and very openly. And we've always been like that. And I hope we always are like that. Cause if I've done something to make them mad, I want to know about it. And if they've done something to make me mad, they damn sure know about it. But it's just it's fun that way. It's more fun. We have, I am their father, but we have a very equal relationship. I guess that's the best way to say it. But both of them have always shown me a ton of respect as their father and have allowed me to have input when perhaps maybe I need to shut up. But I'm very fortunate.
And obviously humor is a big part of that as well. And Harrison took a few digs at you after the race in a playful manner. One that stuck out to me and that kind of ties into the broadcast is in the media center news conference, Harrison kind of stopped at one point and looked at you and said, "Did you call it or were you quiet?" And then somebody told him, "Oh yeah, he was quiet." And Harrison made this joke about that when he won an Xfinity race, you didn't say anything except how bad you felt for Noah Gragson when Harrison passed him on the last lap. And Harrison was like, "What is that, dude? Like, you can be excited. It's okay." Tell us about that, because you were quiet, and I think that was the right play regardless of your style, by the way. I was amused by, I made the mistake of going on social media and coming across somebody's comment that, "Oh, they should have let Burton call this like the way they did Ned and Dale Jarrett." And it's like, okay, this is not somebody who watches a lot of NASCAR and NBC races and understands that Jeff tends to be a little reticent when it comes to discussing Harrison. And that was, I think, what Harrison was kind of joking about in the media center. So tell us about that. Like, I understand, like, you want to be as impartial as you can be, or, the utmost consummate professional, but I think it's also a little bit about who you are as a person too, right? Like, you're not somebody who tends to brag on yourself or your family.
Well, I'll be honest, one of the regrets of the evening was not taking enough time to recognize the impact that win had, right? Big as a win as it was for Harrison, it was equally as bad of a win for Ross Chastain and Bubba Wallace, whom, by the way, both came to victory lane and congratulated Harrison, and with full sincerity. As an analyst, that's my number one job, is to be an analyst. And in that moment, we've had, I've called Harrison winning Xfinity races and was always able to, do that. This was just a different moment. And I'm not saying this because it was Harrison. I'm not. But this just had a different feel to it. Like I don't know what it was. I can't even explain it, but it just was such a big moment in our sport. And you think about that, that's strange, because here's a young man that's essentially last in points, has been fired, has been ridiculed for his lack of success, which is fair. And it just felt like a huge moment. And I got caught up in that a little bit. And I think, but it had, and I do a nice job of separating myself, but it just, I don't know what it was. I mean, you probably explain it better than I can, but, I do know that, in our country, and especially in our sport, when you're down, they're going to hold you down. Like, it's like people tend to like to see someone fall for some reason. Mm-hmm. But when they do fall and then they pick themselves up, they like that even more. And I think that's what we witnessed was a great race, number one. I mean, the whole race was incredible. And then, without being, too exaggerate, without exaggerating too much, it was really a David versus Goliath moment where you had Christopher Bell and Kyle Busch lined up on the inside, and Harrison Burton and Parker Retzlaff. And I would venture to say that there was a portion of our viewership that didn't even know who Parker Retzlaff was. And those two took the fight to the big guys, and won. And the guy that won is fired and open about it, right? And so I don't know. It just, the whole race, the whole evening, the finish, Harrison's post-race interview, it just felt like a big moment in our sport.
Yeah.
And so, I think I got caught up in that some and didn't do a better job of addressing the implications. And that is the only regret that I have.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, also 100th victory for Wood Brothers Racing, which is one of the most venerable teams in NASCAR history, and also at Daytona. I mean, if you could have drawn it up in any scenario for any young stock car driver, where do you want to win your first Cup race? I mean, short of the Daytona 500, I would think this would be next best. I mean, there's a lot there, as you just said. So you have a little bit of regret then that you didn't say more?
I have a little regret that I didn't address that, because it is this system. We talk about this system and we talk about how intense it is, and we talk about the situations it puts drivers and teams in, both good and bad. And it was all out in front of us right there, right?
Yeah.
The guy that's last in points and a team that's last in points, they won the race. They're in the playoffs. And these guys that have been racing in the top 15 all year, chances to win, etc., they're out. And that, in a nutshell, shows you what this playoff point system does. And some people don't like the fact that a team last in place can be in the playoffs, and I get that. But there's no question that built up this event. That built up a team and a driver winning that race, and now they're brand new. It's like it's a new chapter in their lives, and these other guys potentially had a chapter closed, and that's what this playoffs do. And you can't escape that had part of the excitement about the evening. That was part of it. And it's sports, and some people say, well, it's other sports don't do that. Fair enough. But most sports are one team. There's a winner and a loser every week. That's not the case in NASCAR. There's 36 full-time teams. It's a different world. And so we shouldn't treat this sport like other sports. We should treat it differently, because it is different. But all of that made part of the moment feel bigger.
Yeah. Because, like you said, I mean, now essentially either Ross Chastain or Bubba Wallace, one of those guys isn't going to make the playoffs. And I think if you would have said that a week ago, we all would have been shocked.
Well, the other thing is, there's people that could win this coming race. I mean, Eric Jones. Do you think he can't win Darlington?
Right.
I know he can. There's people. By the way, Buescher could win. Bubba could win. Ross could win. They could win this race this weekend too, and lock themselves in. So now, Harrison winning and the Wood Brothers winning now created an opportunity for others, right? And this system creates an opportunity for others. I mean, they can talk about points and all that they want to, but if Bubba and Ross or Chris can go win this race, it doesn't matter where the hell they are in points. And all of them are capable, but so are others behind them. I mean, Ty Gibbs. There's a lot of drivers that could win this weekend that are below them in points. And Ty's not below them in points, but there's a lot that could win. And that makes this weekend, going to the Southern 500, makes this weekend bigger. And the more pressure and opportunity on the teams, whatever the sport is, the better it is for us. And when I say us, the fan base, period. March Madness is wild. The NFL playoffs are wild, because you have to deliver at that moment. And that's what these are. And the New England, the Carolina Panthers got beaten. They had a great season. They got beaten in the Super Bowl, and they lost. They didn't win the Super Bowl because they had the best regular season. The Patriots got beaten in the Super Bowl by the Giants. They lost. They didn't win the Super Bowl. They had a great year, but they didn't win the Super Bowl. And that's what those singular events, that's what makes sports great. It's not. I'm sorry. I like the Charlotte Hornets. If I miss 7 or 8, 9, 12, 14 games, it doesn't matter. It's okay. I can't miss a NASCAR race. It's completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. It's essentially like a wild card game every week.
Every week.
Right. Yeah.
Every week.
Yeah. Yeah. So all of that, I appreciate. All of that is very well said, and really frames this win contextually, which I think is important. But I noticed like you didn't really want to touch so much on the sentimentality of it, which again I think goes back to what Harrison was joking about. Do you consciously try to avoid talking about it too much during races, and does that ever get awkward for you? Is that difficult for you? Take us into that.
It doesn't get awkward for me. Last week, the week before, he spun out getting on pit road or getting to his pit box. And, I said point blank, I said, this is a problem that Harrison has had getting in and out of his pit box with people in the box in front of him and in the box behind him without blocking himself in. He's consistently had this issue and clearly has tons of more work to do. It's fact.
Yeah.
I've made multiple comments about him needing to do things different or better. When I try to stay out of it is when it's a conflict with another driver. That's when I think it's appropriate for me to stay out of it, other than painting the context of what those two drivers are looking at, etc. But I don't point the finger. I'll make a comment like he and Carson Hocevar under caution. The only thing I said was that NASCAR wasn't going to like that, and I was right. I didn't say, "Oh, Carson spun my boy out. That was wrong." You know what I mean? I just stated the fact, and so I don't think it gets awkward. I just think that. Quite simply, I work hard to make sure I have a good relationship with all the drivers. And I cannot walk in that garage area and have them look at me believing that I'm showing favoritism. At the same time, I'm not naive enough to think that they don't understand I want my son to win. You can do both. And Ned Jarrett he's my guiding light. He did it great. And they deserve it. They deserve it. And if somebody's going to come out on the short end of the stick of that, it'll be Harrison. It won't be all the other drivers. I might have to answer to Kim a few times, but that's okay. I'd rather answer to her than have Ross Chastain or Bubba Wallace or Eric Jones or Kyle Busch or any of those guys upset at me because I said something that was partial to my son. They disagree with what I say, obviously, from time to time. And then they are encouraged to call me, and we have these conversations. I won't share all the ones I've had because that's not fair to them because they can do that in confidence. But they all have my number. They all know how to get in touch with me. And many of them have called me and said, "Hey, I disagree with what you said, and here's why." I love that. That's the relationship that I need and want. I'm calling it the way I see it. And so does Steve, right? We're analysts. We call it the way we see it. But our perspective is from our perspective. And the drivers and crew chiefs, they have a perspective. And when they disagree with it, I want to hear it because it makes me smarter.
Yeah. And the fans have a perspective too. And you just alluded to it, Jeff, that Harrison was ridiculed a lot over the last couple of years. And you just said that's fair. But that's got to hurt for you, for Kim, for him, for everybody on your side, right?
The only thing, and I'm not saying this just for Harrison. I'll say this in general. I think that some of the things that are said on social media are ridiculous. I think that some people on social media are just downright ugly and rude and not necessary. And I don't say that just about Harrison. I'll say that I read comments about other drivers that some people make, and it's ridiculous. Like you wouldn't speak to – look, fandom is awesome. I don't like the Tar Heels. I hope they lose every week. But I don't wish ill on them. I don't want somebody to get hurt. I don't think they're bad people. I just think I'm a fan of Duke. I like the Duke Blue Devils, so I don't like Carolina. That's how it has to be. You can't be both. But I want them to be successful, young. I want them to have successful lives. I don't believe that the thing that drives me nuts is when somebody calls a professional athlete trash. That pisses me off because they're at the top of their game comparing themselves to the very best, right? And maybe they're not as good as the guy they're standing next to, but the guy they're standing next to is the top 0.0001% of everyone. Like, for this, when people say that, it makes me furious.
Yeah.
And I don't, and this isn't just about Harrison, like I said, at all. I just can't believe that mankind can't express, I don't like that guy without making comments that are disparaging, that are rude, that are hateful. Like, there's no sense in it. And I love freedom of whatever. You have the right to do that, but that doesn't make it right. And I just, some of the things that happen on social media are unacceptable. And that's not to say you shouldn't pull against somebody. Hell yeah, man, it's sports. Pull against them. Pull against them. But damn, why make it personal? Why make it like, because this guy ain't as good as you think you could be, or as good as the guy that you pull for, he's trash. It's unacceptable. And I hope one day that our society can get back to the point, or maybe we've never been there, but I hope we can get to the point where we can have reasonable disagreements without everything being so personal. And social has been a massive asset in a lot of ways, but there are some negatives to it, and that's one of them.
Yeah. You drove with social media for, say, like the last probably 4 or 5 seasons of your career.
But it wasn't what it is now. And I had to, I took it personal. I had to learn to not take it personal.
Huh.
I just had to learn to not take it personal. There are some reasonable comments made on social media that can make our television broadcast better, that can make me a better person, make me a better analyst, for sure. But the few that are done out of hate or whatever the word is makes me not want to look at comments, because it's not worth it. I know who I am. I work my ass off to be a good person and do the right thing, and I don't need somebody that doesn't know me at all tell me that I'm garbage. That's at 57. I don't have time for that.
What's it like watching not just Harrison, but all the younger drivers work through it now? I mean, they kind of grew up in this generation in a digital social world more so than you or I did. So maybe they're more attuned to it. But as you just said, I mean, it wasn't like this at the tail end of your career. They have to deal with so much more. How do they do it?
I don't know. I think they're, number one, they all have different personalities. Some people could read through their comments and laugh and think it's funny. Other people, it hurts them. I don't know. They all have to have their own plan. Social's, like I said, social's great, and it exposes our sport. It exposes them to people that they otherwise wouldn't be. There, like I said, there's some real positives to it. I think it's harder for a younger generation because they've grown up with social media, and that comment, I have 8,000 friends, or whatever the hell that is. They're not your friends. Like, they're followers. and I think sometimes people, it's just hard for the younger generation to recognize that these are people that are peeking into your life, but that's what they're doing. They have a snapshot of your life. They don't really know who you are. And I think it's harder for younger generation because it's been part of their life, right? They grew up with it. And there's a level of acceptance that they're searching for in different ways than we did when we were kids, right? We weren't looking for the thumbs up from 1,000 followers. We were looking for the thumbs up from our friends, our parents, our teachers, that, you know what I mean? And now you're looking for a thumbs up from somebody you don't even know. I mean, this person may be a great person, may be a horrible person. You don't have any idea, but you still care about what they think. That's a different way to grow up than what we had to.
But again, when you drove, you knew you were going to get criticism. It wasn't on social media. Like, you kind of knew what you signed up for. When Harrison decided he wanted to follow you, and you knew that kind of what he was going to be facing, regardless of what, the success that he may or may not have, you knew that this goes with the territory. This is part of the deal. Is that difficult? when you realized he wanted to kind of follow in your footsteps, knowing that not to dwell on the negative, but this is sort of what you're facing as part of it?
So look, this it's a blessing and honor to drive a race car for a living. That is, to do what you love to do and be able to make a living do it, that's a blessing in life. And you can't let the negative part of it take away from what the blessing it is, right? So you have to learn to manage all of it, and the good and the bad. And so managing social and managing your feelings about it and managing the emotional part of social becomes part of the job. But it doesn't take away how great it is to be able to wake up in the morning, making a living, doing what you love. I don't give a damn what it is. That's a blessing, man. Like, and you can't let the negatives of it take that away. And that's how I view it. Like, I view social as an opportunity and a challenge, but I also view it as part of the job. And no job's perfect. No relationship's perfect. There's nothing perfect in life. You just got to figure out how to manage it. And that's different for everybody. So you, as a parent, it makes me mad when somebody says something that's uncalled for, but it makes me mad for every one of these drivers. When I read some of these comments, personal comments, it makes me mad for all of them, not just for Harrison. And it more is disheartening. Like, how did we get here? like I think Mike Tyson said, or one of those guys said, you guys on social will say stuff on this thing that you wouldn't say to me in my face. I can promise you that. And I just, look, I didn't mean we just shouldn't have turned this into a social conversation, but it is a challenge for all of them.
Yeah. So when Harrison goes through the struggles he went through the last 3 years, what's that? I mean, it just sounds like what you just said kind of explains it well, that like you kind of view it, and you want him to view it as, hey, this is a privilege. To drive a professional race car for a living is a privilege. And I'm honored that you're on this same path as me, even if you're not doing as well, at least at the outset, in your Cup career that you were. Is that kind of how you view it? Is it, you kind of...
Well, the first 2 years of his Cup career are very similar to mine.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very similar. Like, if you look at the numbers, they're very, very similar. And I do have to keep reminding him of that, is that, his first year of Xfinity, I didn't do that. I mean, I didn't win my first Xfinity race until a while. It took me 2 years full-time racing, and it was the end of the second year that I won my first Xfinity race. And his Xfinity career got off to a much stronger start at a much younger age than I was. And then his first 2 years in Cup looked very, very similar to mine. I mean, they almost overlaid them. And so that made this third year very important. And unfortunately, to be honest, Nate, they haven't executed. They've run way better than they finished. And he's lost his job because of it. And that's how it is. No one on this end is upset. Well, look, no one liked it, but no one's mad that he lost his job. We're disappointed. He's disappointed. But it's a result-based business, and the results weren't there. And so and we can look at every race and dissect it. And the problem was that they just didn't execute and get the finishes. And then you mix in some races where they just simply ran poorly, right? Because it was a combination of that too. And, they had that something had to change. And that's what it is, sports. It's professional sports. And so it is what it is. And Harrison has had to take ownership in that. And he has. I mean, it's been a process, right? I mean, obviously you have all the emotions are still there. You're mad, you're angry, you're sad, whatever it is. And he's had to go through that process. But ultimately, what you saw Saturday night was him. And he was truly happy for the Wood brothers. 100%.
Yeah.
And he's just a different dude, man. He's just a different person. And most people aren't like that. And
Yeah.
that works for him as a person. People love him. People really like being around him. But at the same time, sometimes that kind, giving personality isn't best for him as a race car driver. And he's having to learn how to manage those two things together. And he's 23. He's 23 years old. And so imagine the experiences that he has had at 23. And it'll make him better at 25. It'll make it better at 28. And he's 23 damn years old. And so he's at a crossroads in his career that he will whatever happens, but he'll be a better person for it, and he'll be a better race car driver for it. But we all have to do things the way we have to do them. This process is part of the journey. And Dale Jarrett, Mark Martin have all reached out to him. A lot of race car drivers that, didn't have success, but then did, have reached out to him and said, it's okay, man. Like, just don't quit. And that's what you're seeing.
You touched on it earlier. I think one of the reasons that it has been such a popular victory is the way Harrison has handled the firing. Like you said, I mean, here's somebody in his early to mid 20s who is so candid and so honest and isn't caught up in the, oh, woe is me. He comes off very much as a professional. And, you've been through it, that DJ, Mark Martin, they've dealt with it. You guys know what it's like to have your dreams get crushed right when you reach to the top level. And it's part of the deal. Is that kind of what you've imparted on him and others have as well? And that's kind of shown up in the way he's handled all of this?
I think what I'm proud of most in Harrison is that I couldn't be more proud of Harrison. If he had won 10 Cup races in the last 2.5 years, I wouldn't be more proud of Harrison. Because I'm proud of who he is as a person. And when things are tough, when things suck, that's when you find out who people are. And throughout this entire process, I can't tell you the number of people from the Wood Brothers, from their alliance association with Penske, that have walked up to me and said, we are fighting for that. We're fighting for that kid. Like, this is post-firing. We are, he hadn't changed a bit since we made this announcement. I just can't tell you the number of people that have told me that. And that is taking ownership. The core of that is not being a victim, not letting that mentality creep in. And it's easy for that mentality to creep in. And if you take ownership in life, things tend to be better. It sucks to wake up in the morning thinking that things are completely out of your control and there's nothing you could have done about it and you're in a bad spot. And that happens. That's real. That happens. But when you are able to be in control, and when you are able to have input, and you are able to be part of the process, you can't let that creep in. Because if you do, then when you are successful, it wasn't because of you. And when you aren't successful, it isn't because of you. Well, then if it's not because of you, then how do you fix it? And that's there are 100% people that have things happen to them that were completely out of your control. And those people have a hard time of trying to, I feel terrible for those people that can't let go that it wasn't their fault, right? Because they hold a responsibility that isn't fair. Like, that's terrible too. But I feel bad also for the people that blame it on other people when it was them that could have influenced it. Like, either way, it sucks, right? And life's hard. But it's recognizing what you can control and what you can't control, and then recognizing what you can do about it. That's the essence of success. Whether it's winning a race or not winning a race, if you are influencing the things that you can influence, and you are putting forward the best you can put forward and doing the best you can do, then you are at least doing your part. And you can do 100% your part and not work out. But at least when you go to bed at night, you now have something to focus on. Okay, I need to be better at what, right? If you just say, well, that team had bad pit stops, they had bad calls, they built slow race cars, it's all on them, then when you go to bed at night, what the hell are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
That's a terrible way for an athlete to be, because then the success you have isn't because of you. Well, that doesn't sound fun. But anyway, I'm proud of him because he's had that mentality. At 23 years old, he has the maturity to recognize that he isn't going to blame him losing his job on Eddie Wood or Lynn Wood or John Wood. He's going to look at himself and say, what did I do that put them in a position to feel like they needed to make a change? That's two different outlooks. And I could not be more proud of him for being the latter.
But it's interesting that it's a tough needle to thread, Jeff, because I've heard you talk about it many times. You talked about when you're still driving that the essence of being a successful race car driver, a lot of it is about being selfish. And a lot of it about is just like pounding your chest and just force of will. I'm going to tell everybody how to do this because I got to look out for myself. I got to look out for number one. And Harrison, I mean, you just said he's a different dude. And I think it speaks to the fact that he did have all these drivers, the parade of not just his teammates, not just his Ford drivers, but other drivers coming to victory lane, congratulating him on the cool down lap, after he wins. That speaks to his character, but he's wired. It seems like he's wired differently than you are a little bit. So if he's able to succeed, does it even mean that much more to you that he's able to do something that you did in a successful manner, but maybe do it in a different way and do it in a way that, as you just said, makes you so proud?
Yeah, I mean, so everybody has to do this their own way. They just have to recognize that the way they're doing it isn't all 100% right. Like they have to adjust to the things that they aren't doing well. And so Harrison's very true to who he is, and sometimes to a fault. Sometimes you have to change some things that you're doing, right? And because you still philosophically can be true to who you are, but also work on being better at things that you have to be better at. And some of that is being selfish. Like there are times in life and sports that you have to be selfish. I don't want this podcast to be about cliches, but I hate the phrase "there's no I in team." That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. What makes a great team is a bunch of selfish people that want, when I say selfish, that if everybody focused on what their role is and what they need to do to be the best person they can be to fit in this role, that makes the best team. Well, that is selfish. That is because you have to focus on yourself first to be part of a team. You can't, that's the stupidest saying I've ever heard. There's no I in team. It's full of I's. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And so yes, but you have to recognize your strengths and your weaknesses. And all of us have different personalities. We're all wired differently. And you got to tap into, and by the way, some of this just comes natural to some people. Kyle Larson doesn't have to lay in bed at night thinking about what do I have to do there. Like he just drives a damn race car, right?
Yeah.
Like, some are just outliers that are freaking awesome at what they do. The very top 1% of the 1%, right? They're freaking outliers. But the majority of us aren't. I mean, I wasn't as good as Jimmy Johnson. I had to find a different way. The way Jimmy Johnson did it, I couldn't have done it. I had to be different because he was better than me. Kevin Harvick was better than me. Mark Martin was better than me.
Yeah.
Jeff Gordon was better than me. But damn, I won enough doing it the way I needed to do it. And I had my chance to win championships too with less natural ability. So you just have to tap into what makes you tick, and you have to tap into your weaknesses to ultimately get where you need to go.
Jimmy Johnson.
I got a roll.
No problem.
Yeah. So however we need to close it. I got a full day of podcasts, and I'm sorry I didn't know that I was going to be this long on this one.
That's all right. That's fine. Well, let's close on this because I do want to get your thoughts on. There were a couple of instances of airborne cars at Daytona. There was one at Michigan. You're tied into what's going on with NASCAR and safety. Just briefly, your thoughts on that and what needs to occur and what's happening. Or are you a little bit concerned about what's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's concerned about what's going on. I think that the two were completely separate incidents, right? And we have to look at and really do a study about why. And they are. Look, I don't know that there's an immediate answer. I think, some of what Dale Jr. and some others were saying last week was that, hey, we're going to have cars flip from time to time. And that's true. But what's the level of acceptable, right? And I think we've probably crossed that a little bit to have 3 cars flip in 2 weeks. I mean, some of it's coincidence because we're not flipping cars every other damn week, right? So clearly there has to be some improvements. That there's no question in my mind NASCAR spending time working on it, trying to figure out how to make it better. And I mean, honestly, we got Talladega coming up, but going to next year's Daytona 500, I would expect some different changes.
All right, good to know. We'll keep an eye on that. As always, appreciate you being here.
Thank you, guys. Sorry to rush out.
No problem, man. You got a busy week. I get it.
Wow. See you.
Hi, I'm Parker Kligerman. For more access like this from Pit Road, be sure to click and subscribe to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube channel.